at DEFCON 1.
DEFCON 1.
I've said many times before that I really like my Delonghi Perfecta machine, but it just seems as though it breaks, every few months. But it's probably getting close to 10 years old now. But this is the first time the grinder has given me trouble. So once again, it's time to open it up and dive into it. Okay, so these two screws need to be removed, and then the top slides up to reveal the innards. With the back off, then that reveals these 4 screws that can all be removed, and then each side slides to the back to be removed. So our goal is to get the top off so we can get access to the grinder. So then we have to remove these 2 screws on this side, and then these 3 screws on the other side. And then while we're here, let's look at the controller board because we need to unplug the grinder from that. So it's not super clear from this, but you need to follow these 2 wires, which are the grinder power, and then follow them to the control board and unplug them from there. Okay, with those screws out and those wires disconnected, that should free up the grinder and allow it to pull straight up and out. Then this little plug needs to be popped out in order to reveal the screw underneath. So this is looking down into the hopper, and these 3 screws identified need to be removed in order to separate the hopper from the grinder assembly. And then there's just these 2 more screws. Okay, after that, now the grinder is out on the bench and I'm ready to apply power to it just to sort of see what happens. As usual, you have to be careful with this. This thing uses 115 volts AC in the US, and of course the grinder is unprotected at this point, so you need to exercise caution. So that's certainly the same sound I heard before, so nothing changed, it's still broken. So now I'm going to try and open up the grinder assembly and see if I can see anything wrong inside. So the motor pops off really easily, and it's just got this belt and gear assembly here. Okay, so the motor works fine, especially when you hold it. So now I gotta dig in deeper. I couldn't get this bottom set of gears to come out at this point, so in the end I just ended up starting from the other side. So I struggled for a while to get this thing apart, and in the end the key ended up being these little tabs on the side. There are 3 of them, 2 small and 1 large, and if you just pry them up, then eventually that ring comes off. Okay, here I'm just using a Sharpie to mark the relative positions of these 2 gears before I remove one of them. And those gears adjust this sliding mechanism, which actually adjusts the height of part of the grinder to adjust the grind of the beans. So we're finally getting down to the core of it, and this seems to be the drive mechanism. This spins, and it spins by virtue of these ball bearings pressing in against the bottom. Those are springs underneath the ball bearings. And my suspicion is that it just may be that one or two of those ball bearings came out of place, and that's why the grinder was making such a horrible noise. It's a little hard to tell because maybe they just fell out of place when I removed that little drive gear. Okay, then I'm just removing the ball bearings, and then I'll flip it over and remove the springs. And really I'm just trying to take things apart here, so ultimately I can clean it. Just feels like there's a lot of embedded crust from many, many years of grinding beans here. And here's that planetary gear setup that I was trying to remove earlier, and it was just stuck to this other mechanism on top. That also proved to be something that felt really, really stiff as I was trying to turn it. And I don't have any way of knowing if that was actually contributing to the problem with the grinder, but it certainly felt as though it needed some lubrication. So what I found worked best was to kind of pump the lube in from the back side there and twist it around. You can see it was starting to come through the ball bearings there. I don't know for sure that this is what is called for here, but it did feel better after I put the lube in. And then of course I had to give it a little spin test. Okay, after that I tried to clean everything up and get rid of the sediment that had built up over the years. And then it's time for reassembly. Obviously, as you're putting things back together, again, make sure you get all the parts there. I can see now that I had missed one of the gears as I put this final ring on. And then here I'm just making sure that that adjustment ring actually moves that part of the grinder up and down. Again, that's to adjust the fineness of the grind. Okay, and then here I'm just attaching the motor again to the bottom. Okay, and then it's time for a quick test.